Hi. I apologize, I'm not in my normal garb. Everything's in boxes right now. Also, I'm dog sitting, so I don't have that ready access to formal clothing. So, you're just gonna have to deal with t-shirt me for a while. The first thing to notice about the second chapter versus the first chapter of Magicence is the art quality. There is a very sharp increase in the art quality from the first chapter to the second chapter. Hell, there's actually kind of an increase in art quality in the first chapter alone. And the first chapter was 50 pages, so of course there was an increase in art quality. Did I kick the camera? However, the kind of sharp increase from like the last page of chapter 1 to the first page of chapter 2, it's so sharp that I'm believing that there is either a hiatus, the camera won't stop refocusing, I'm right here, why are you having so much issues? Which leads me to believe that there was either a hiatus between chapter 1 and chapter 2, or somebody went over and redid the art for chapter 2. Either way, I have no idea. Also, this is unrelated at all to the quality of the comic, but I can swear I read this in high school, and I talked to some of the creators. None of them seem to have gone to the same high school as I did. It's just for whatever reason, I have a memory of proofreading the second chapter in high school, which is probably just me. I probably read it in high school because I was really into comics, and people used to have me proofread their comics, and I guess I got those two things mixed up. But I have read actually this comic before. It's been 5 years and I forgot everything. I really like the color schemes. It does kind of follow that 2012 cartoon, even though the cartoons still have that same color issues today, where it's not really an issue, it's more of a style. I was just never that fond of it. Where the colors are super pastel. Um, it's very pleasing to the eye to look at. Unfortunately, I have digital eye strain because I do comics for a living, so this color scheme is a bit harsh on my eyes. Um, but to your usual audience, this is a wonderful color scheme. It's great. I used to love these color schemes until I had digital eye strain. Now I have a yellow filter on my computer. I have to wear sunglasses, and I have my monitor on lowest brightness, and it still sucks. I have like two kind of tied for favorite parts of this comic, or I shouldn't say parts so much as characteristics of this comic. And first is the characterization. These characters, they react to each other and to the world very naturally. I can tell these characters were kind of built up um, between these chapters. They're a little more defined, they're flowing a bit more, and they're not, even though they follow cliches, they're not shallow. Yeah, the main character is like kind of like like they're bashful to move the plot forward, but they're not just the plot move forward girl. She also does things and reacts and fucks shit up. Particularly, I like how the characters interact with each other. Um, if you have kind of a character-based piece of media, you always want interaction with each other, as much more than you have interaction with the world. Interaction with the world is good. They should react to their world, but they should react to each other more. Unless, of course, they're in some sort of situation where they're in complete isolation, then yeah, react with the world. So we have these characters, and there's one scene in particular where the king is talking to her steward, and she's just she's sort of oblivious. She's completely losing her shit. Um, she's pissed off. She's happy. She's feeling like a million emotions at once, and you can also tell she's also kind of this bashful personality. And then her steward is a really collected, doesn't take any shit kind of guy, and he's just following her around, um, listening to her go off and be like, "That's dumb, but all right." The king and her steward were like the favorite character interactions I saw in this comic. Um, One thing is that the two main characters, I forgot both of their names. Their chemistry on screen doesn't work the best. I guess I should say their on-screen chemistry. They have trouble interacting with each other, so when they're with each other, they tend to interact with the world instead. Because they are both bashful personalities. They are both move the plot forward by being blunt and going through things sort of people. Um, Even though they execute this trait completely different ways, and the execution is where they foil. The red haired guy, he's rude, he's a jerk. He puts himself before others. The girl, she doesn't necessarily, she's completely neutral. She doesn't seem to put others before herself, but she also doesn't seem to put herself before others. She does lean towards putting others before herself, but that doesn't seem to be like, she won't 100% of the time choose to put others before herself. She seems to calculate things a little more before she makes those kinds of decisions. She seems to kind of do what she wants in the moment. And these two, while that is a foil, they're both chaotic, and that kind of bumps into each other. That was actually my main issue with LT Gray, and it was also my favorite part of the cartoon LT Gray, is that the two main characters in LT Gray were both chaotic neutral. Arguably were both chaotic evil, actually. But when you have two chaotics, sometimes it just gets a bit much, and they can't interact with each other. They have to interact with the world. That's not necessarily true. LT Gray, there was a whole lot of interaction between the two main characters, even though it wasn't to the ratio of to each other and to the world that it usually is. Still, though, the characterization is great. The narrative flow, now, I could see people complaining that the comic is slow. Personally, this is completely to my taste. This is my absolute cup of tea. I love it when comics take forever to do shit, and I guess I shouldn't say forever, because it doesn't spend too long on anything. It is dialogue heavy, but it also doesn't dwell on things. It lets us discover things naturally. There's no just like, the closest to an exposition dump we had was actually in chapter 1 when they're explaining the races, and even then each race only got like one sentence, and then our main character ended up choosing a race that didn't really get a description anyway. So that was actually pretty good, and we're discovering the world as she discovers it. Whenever we hear about like a war, it's because somebody casually mentioned that war in front of her and she asked them about it, and they gave a very kind of realistic amount of information about it. Like, if you had said, hey, what was World War One? If you ask somebody that, they're not going to turn around and give you the complete history of World War One. They're going to say, fucking, I don't know. Somebody killed some Austrian dude and then everybody got pissed off. Like 2 million people died at least. And then they're like, okay. And that's the way they treat like the yokai war in this, is she was just like, somebody was like, oh yeah, this and that war, you know? And she was like, the war? And they were like, yeah, somebody killed your dad and there was a whole war about it, dummy. And she was like, okay. And that was a wonderful way of handling that. And discovering the world with these characters, that's, whew. I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'll say it with every review I ever do for the rest of my life. Exposition's alright, but we should discover the world naturally. We don't need, your world should be built, but not, I don't have to know everything at the start. You can just tell me, oh, these people, this is important, you need to know this, the rest of this you'll need that to know that in 5 chapters. You'll probably naturally come across that information before then anyway, so that's the best way to handle exposition. If you have an ongoing work, just like, feed it to me bit by bit. Don't just dump the whole pot of macaroni on me. I ain't gonna eat that. It's gonna be in my hair. There's a few chapters that are, or not chapters, there's a few pages that are kind of randomly black and white. As far as I can tell, this is random. This was not a rhetorical device. Probably they were, you know, just trying to save time. Maybe it was finals week. Maybe they just decided to, you know, take it easy. Which, my dog just decided to make a lot of noise. It's not my dog, it's my dad's dog. But he is beautiful. Sorry, it's black and white. I imagine this was either to save time, or maybe their wrist hurt, maybe it was finals week, who knows. But there are a few just pages that are randomly in black and white. And the thing is that once I encountered these pages, I had actually started to rely on the color scheme to tell characters apart. They can be told apart without the color scheme. It's just this is kind of it's a mixture between a Western and Japanese style, the way that they design these characters. And I'm used to Western styles to where the silhouette is the thing that stands out the most. And while they all have distinct silhouettes, they're not as distinct as I'm used to. So once it went black and white, I had to kind of go back and convert my color scheme memorization to facial recognition. So that way when I switched back to the black and white pages, I was able to tell them apart. That's not really a criticism of this work. It was just something that I had to do. I guess as a heads up more than anything. It's not really a valid criticism because it was kind of my fault that I was using the color schemes to tell characters apart. Either way, this was a great chapter. It was 71 pages long, which woof. And I discovered that the archive actually is fairly functional on this. You get the chapter, and each page you're able to find it via the archive, and that's useful. I still don't like having every page on its own place, but I'll live. That's all I had to say about that, so ciao.